Alright, inmendham video. Get the logistics out of the way. I'm going to talk about two subjects, sort of. One sort of economic, one sort of physics. And there's two links to time codes of a Piro room below. So the first link, I guess, is the economics part. And the second link will be the physics part, where I'm in the room and I'm talking about those subjects. So Piro does his usual room, and it's really quite irritating, for me anyway, to listen to, just because it's the same stuff over and over. Nothing evolves in terms of a conversation to get anywhere. So anyway, I was eventually provoked into getting in the room because Piro again makes these claims like, oh yes, let's just make it a democracy, and for the running of the business or something, give the workers power. And first off, I don't think there was anything practical in it, in the sense that if the owners still own it, they're going to fight or resist any kind of taking of their control of the agenda. And it's just going to mean that if there's some way they can Google you as an employee beforehand and find out that you might be a troublemaker, a liberal of some kind, a progressive, they won't hire you. And that's simple. Why would they hire somebody who's going to be trouble, who's going to vote the wrong way? They wouldn't. And so you're not going to work, okay, if you don't talk Borg, corporate Borg. You either talk that conversation in your real life, or you won't have a job. So totally impractical, I'd say. Just doesn't fit. It doesn't meet the minimum standards of a good idea. So anyway, this all comes down to some kind of conversation about the usefulness of conversation, and I guess the underlying thing I would want to get to, the real subject, is the fact that it's a lot harder to make something than it is to break something. And the same goes for progressive change or suggesting change. It's hard to create something that works, and it's really easy to nitpick and naysay and find vulnerabilities. That's the easy part. So breaking it is easy, making it's difficult. And that sort of has to be acknowledged ahead of time in going into any of these kind of conversations, is that there should be a little bit of respect for the people attempting to make, and you shouldn't waste time with a bunch of unnecessary just keep reaching for a different sledgehammer. So in a sense, I would say that in many of these arguments you sustain, you can be the maker, and you're defending yourself against the people with the sledgehammers, and some of those hammers are necessary. Test my idea, I'm saying. Test it. Go ahead. Whack it a few times. And there should be some kind of rule, though, that it just doesn't go on forever. That if I sustain a few hammer blows, you get a few shots, and if you can't dent it, I win. And we understand that now we have a good foundation to build on. I just don't sit here forever and just keep saying, go ahead, pick up a different hammer. Go find another hammer. Go to your neighbor's house and get a hammer. Go to the gun shop store or something, buy some explosives, and then throw that at me too. There's a point where it just gets pointless, because they're not testing your idea. They're just routinely going to say, eventually, if I hit it enough times, I'll break it. Because I'll go pick up something he can't deal with. I'll go pick up a new subject, basically. I'll change the subject and pretend this is the same subject, and it's really a completely different subject, and I'll break it. Because obviously it's not the same subject, so it's easier to break when you're not even on the same subject anymore. So I'm just saying it's kind of that thing. So I see the real gap here from my perspective, in terms of just looking at it as a practical matter, is, yes, the fact that everything turned into this conversation off the top of our head, live room stuff, and there's absolutely no video exchanges done anywhere. Even though, I mean, look, YouTube didn't provide us the little response video thing. Well, so what? That's still, in my opinion, that's no reason for video responses to go away. I still make response videos. I'm still playing the same game, but nobody else is. So there's, so yeah, it's only one player. So there's not much of a game. One player playing whatever the game is, I have to just keep creating the opposition in a sense. But there really isn't a game to play. And I think you need that kind of structure to be able to point out that some idea is no longer a viable conversation. You just say, okay, that one's didn't survive tiny little taps. I mean, we just tapped that one and that one broke. So let's not play with that. Let's find some better premise to start with, and move the conversation on. All right. So anyway, on the economic stuff, I've long proposed that we can get rid of the wasteful wealthy without doing anything draconian. We can just outcompete them. We can destroy capitalism by we the people just recognizing that workers create value and that we are going to defend workers against the rich, because those are the two things competing here. And the rich produce no value and the workers produce maximum value. The argument is that 99% of the wealthy are getting a paycheck for not making any viable, valuable, useful contribution whatsoever. And that the tiny percentage of rich people who are actually working, their contribution is so minuscule that it's not something you should worry about sacrificing. It's perfectly reasonable to throw it overboard, okay, because what you're getting rid of in terms of waste, garbage, sewage, of the useless baggage of the fat wealthy who do nothing but take a paycheck, getting rid of them is going to be so valuable to your buoyancy, to use a metaphor, analogy, that whatever value a little tiny percentage of the rich have, you're not going to miss it, because you're going to gain so much from getting rid of the waste. And the same argument could be made about welfare in the real sense. I mean, the other welfare whores is that you could create mechanisms that de-incentivize having children too early, young, where their self-interest is harmed by making such a decision. So instead of profiting from reckless reproduction, they would not profit. And they would have a clear incentive not to do it in terms of a personal interest. And you can get rid of the problem that way. You don't have to do anything draconian. You can just create simple little mechanisms that create better incentives, and those incentives will take care of themselves. And so my argument is that you create a public option, not-for-profit businesses, to compete with capitalism, that those businesses will, if properly managed, if you come up with some sort of management system that is rational, that they will easily be able to outcompete the lazy rich, because the lazy rich really aren't doing anything to run businesses. And when they do run them, they do it in some kind of nonsensical way where they pay some CEO millions of dollars to make stupid decisions. And they're often stupid. They're not brilliant people who have brilliant ideas. They're just people the stock market reacts to favorably or unfavorably, and that's why they get their job, because it makes the stock go up. Okay? And that's it. No other value involved, really. So anyway, the point, so that's what's argued for the half an hour or so before it goes to the physics conversation, is just the idea of creating this public option business, and the fact that you need to have a balance of power between workers and consumers, that those are the two interests. And we sort of, in an ironic kind of way, are both of those things. In our lives, we're both consumers and producers, and we want to be rewarded when we produce well, and we don't want to get ripped off as consumers. And so those are we have the balance already built into ourselves if we vote our own self-interest in a sense. And so if you just have a balance between power of those two interests, accountability, that you'll create a very efficient system where most of the money goes to the people doing the work, okay, and none of the money goes to people who did no work. And we can get rid of this whole, the burden of carrying a bunch of rich, lazy, welfare or owner types. We just don't need the owners. Owners are not a vital part of progress or civilization. Owners don't make your civilization. People picking up your garbage do. That's the fundamental argument, and you're just looking for a straight line to get to those things. You know, straight lines are always now interesting because of the whole physics thing. Because nobody wants to believe straight lines exist anymore. Everything's a wave. Anyway, which is just so irritating. So I do plan on doing a video, an economic video again. I just wanted to get a few things straight, just to go over some of the gimmicks that have been used to sustain the economy. And they're completely unsustainable gimmicks. Okay, so you know, I'll just mention them quickly and just give you a preview and just explain how insidious and horrible the rich are, because this is what the rich are doing to you. This is how they're stealing the value of your dollar. But it's not like the crazy people think that the Fed's printing money and the Fed is making all this. No, it's not that. The rich are making the money and they're inheriting it substantially, and the value is in the stock market, and the government is complicit in making the stock market go up by using deficit spending. And so they complain about deficit spending, right, the rich, but clearly deficit spending is what makes the stock market go up. It couldn't go up otherwise. So it's completely dependent on debt for the market to gain value, for prices to go up, for your house to increase in value. All that stuff is necessary. There's a necessary connection between these things. The debt must increase for those things to happen, for your wealth to be created. Yeah. So the first racket was the Social Security racket, where the payroll taxpayers, which are the low-income earners, pay in advance. They pay actual cash to the federal government. Their salary is taken and given to the federal government. So it's not a promise of payment. It's not a check. Hard cash is taken by the government from the payroll tax for the hard workers. And they created a trust fund for the Social Security system to make it solvent. And then they allowed the rich to borrow that, take that money, and say, we would like to defer our taxes to someday in the future, please. We don't want to pay them today. We want to pay them years from now. We really don't want to be bothered doing that paying taxes thing. So, yeah, just use that trust fund money and give us a tax break. So they created an income tax cut for the rich using the payroll tax trust fund. So payroll taxpayers, the poor people, pay money in advance, money now. They'll gain no interest on it. It comes right out of their bank account. It goes out of their bank account and essentially went into the bank account of the richest people in the world. And that was a racket. And that racket was supposed to be saving the Social Security system, when no, all it was doing was making the rich $2 trillion richer. That's all. It put $2 trillion into the stock market. That's where the money went. So you took money from poor people, basically just said, we're not going to let you earn any interest on it. We're not going to let you put it in your bank account. We're going to take the money and we're going to put it in the rich man's bank account and let him earn interest on it in the stock market. Bigger interest than even you would get. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. And then we'll lend you credit card money, you know, because you don't have any money, so you'll have to borrow it from the rich guy. So now the rich guy's going to win twice. Not only did he make you poorer, which makes you need his debt money, okay, he stole your money overtly. He took it. He borrowed. The rich borrowed $2 trillion from poor people. That's what happened. Okay, now the racket number 2, the Federal Reserve trick of 2011. We can't print the money, because if we print it, yes, that's inflationary. So let's do the next best thing, which is we'll put the money in the bank account of the banks, right? So we'll give them, we'll say, here's some money, and we'll tell them, go buy us crap. So buy our debt off the market, because we can't afford to pay the debt anymore, so the interest on the debt. So just make the debt go away. So we'll put fake money, but you're not going to really be able to use it, right? That's the agreement. Wink, wink. Don't ever use this money, okay, bank? This isn't real money. This is we're just playing around, right? And then you write checks, Mr. Bank, to these guys and buy debt. So you give them one of your bank checks. Okay, don't give them real money. Give them a bank check. Okay, and then, but yeah, the money's in the reserve account. So if you get really poor, right, if you ever go bankrupt, you can take the money, but you can't take it unless you're going bankrupt, okay? That's the deal. And go out and buy stuff with your fake money off the market so we don't have to pay interest on it anymore. Okay, won't that be cool? So they get $4 trillion worth of that. So we got $4 more trillion where they basically said, let's buy crap off the market. So the stuff that's competing with the stock market, like rich people have money, and if they don't invest in the stock market, then they own oil stock, or they own corn or wheat or some other commodity. And one of the commodities are bonds. So what we basically did was say, let's take $4 trillion worth of bonds off the market. And then those people have $4 trillion in bank cash. And now they can buy stocks. See? So it's another $4 trillion into the stock market because we took commodities off the market. We took $4 trillion worth of paintings off the painting market, and all the paintings went up, right? It's like if I burn down, 2 billion houses in America, or whatever, 1 billion houses in America, I just burn them down. Well, the value of all the other houses will go up, right? Logically. That's going to be the implication. Well, that's sort of what the government did. It burned down some of the commodities on the market, took the bonds off the market, made them disappear, and by doing that, they made everything else that existed more valuable. So the rich got richer again. Okay, so that's $2 trillion plus $4 trillion. So that's $6 trillion of free money to the rich. Because you see, there's no way to pay it back. So if the banks actually do go bankrupt and they actually take the money out of the reserve accounts, because it's technically their money. I mean, technically they wrote checks. So if they ever go bankrupt, they're going to have to balance those books, and they're going to have to pay those checks to each other. I mean, the check is from Bank A to Bank B, right? Bank B says, you owe me $1 trillion. And Bank A says, yes, you'll pay me when I need it. That's basically what they're saying to each other. I don't need it today, but if things go south, I'm going to need that money, so you're going to have to pay me. You know that, right? And they say, yes, we know that. That's part of our agreement with the cheating government. So they don't have to print the money. But the trick will be, is if the banks do go bankrupt, then the banks will take the money out of the reserve accounts, and the government won't have the money, so it has to print the cash then. So then it's going to print $4 trillion worth of cash. Now there's already $1.7 trillion in circulation. That's all there is, 1.7. So you can imagine if all of a sudden there's $4 trillion extra dollars in the economy, that's 3 times as much money that's in the economy now. So that's at least 300% inflation. At least. At least. Okay. Trick number 3. Sorry, I didn't mean to make this the economy video, but what the hell, since I'm doing it. Trick number 3. I want to get deeper into the whole supply and demand argument, so it's not just going to be about this banking fraud, but the banking fraud is reason why you should be suspect of the current economy. Fraud number 3, FDIC insurance. Okay, so there's this idea of the FDIC insure certain bank deposits against failure to give people security so they don't do any running on the banks and all this other stuff because they know their money's safe. Well, the problem is, so the government used that idea of insurance to fix a bunch of stuff that was going to go bankrupt. So the banks had all this bad paper from the bad mortgages, and they were all bankrupt. And there was no way to avoid bankruptcy court unless you somehow fixed all that bad money, all that bad debt. So the only way the government could fix it was they had to say, well, all this stock that says absolute piece of shit on it, and everybody knows it's shit, all they said was, they said, well, look, we'll guarantee it. So now it's guaranteed shit. So they said to the people who might buy it, they said, look, this is like going to Las Vegas. But some of this shit isn't really shit. Some of it's complete shit, and some of it's not quite complete shit. And so some of it could actually make money in the future, but it's doubtful. But it could. And if it does, I'll let you keep the profits. But if it loses money, you just sell it back to me and I'll give you the original price. So it's like me telling you, here's some tickets to go to Las Vegas, and you get to keep any profits, but I'll take care of all the losses. So you can't lose. I'm giving you a no-lose trip to Las Vegas where you get to keep anything you win. Why wouldn't you buy that, right? Yeah, that's a pretty good deal, right? So that's how they saved they stopped the bankruptcies from happening by just saying, let's guarantee the shit. So they used something that's FDIC insurance that's supposed to be credible, and they've completely destroyed any kind of hope that it can pay the bills. So they have a $20 billion fund, insurance fund, $20 billion are in it, and it's insuring maybe $7 trillion worth of crap. And I don't mean $7 trillion worth of bank deposits. No, $7 trillion worth of crap. Actual junk bonds. Actual shit. Stuff that has no value except it says on it mortgages or something. But it doesn't have any value. You can't make it. You can't sell it on the real market for actual. You couldn't even buy dog shit with it. It's so valueless. And the government's guaranteed that. So if those people have hard times and they say, I got to sell my dog shit stock, no one wants to buy the dog shit stock. So they're going to go back to the government and say, you told me you'd buy it, so give me the money. And then obviously, again, the government's not going to have the money. $20 billion, $7 trillion. $20 billion can't make $7 trillion. So they're going to have to print money again. So they're going to have to print a lot of money. Trillions of dollars. So 300% inflation goes to 700% inflation. And you just see where it's heading. So that's the train wreck we're on. That they've created a bunch of mechanisms, gimmicks, that'll get you from today to tomorrow. But they have no long-term hope of working. We'll never get the money out of the Federal Reserve accounts. We're never going to collect $4 trillion of extra taxes to buy the bonds back onto the market. We're never going to do. You know they're not going to do that. They're not going. We collect $2 trillion a year in income taxes. You think they're going to double the taxes, triple the taxes in 1 year to get that money back out of there? It's never coming back out. They're never going to be able to buy those junk bonds off the market and get rid of that huge liability on FDIC insurance. It's $7 trillion. They're not going to tax people for $7 trillion to fix that. And they're never going to put the $2 trillion back in the Social Security Trust Fund. So these are all gimmicks. Make the stock market go up, make the rich richer, and totally screw any sustainability for the economy. It's gimmicks, and it's not going to work, and somebody should have the honesty to say that's what it is. It's tricks. This is not anything called an economy. It's fake. It's a lie. It's built on stuff that can't work. It's not that it won't work. It can't work in the long run. So that's the doom. Alright, then the physics thing. Okay. So, there's no real thing I can say, except, yes, the naysayers are just insidious pains in the ass, right? Because they're not testing your theory. They're just badgering you, okay, with any kind of crap. They're forcing you to have knowledge of every single possible, catch-22 concept they could come up with, and to debunk it. And instead of dealing with the fundamental argument you can present to them where the wheels aren't on the car. So you're talking about a car, and you're saying, well, look, this is why this car doesn't work. It doesn't have tires. There's no tires on the wheels, so it can't move. And then they're going to argue with you about stuff. Well, the motor runs, and the steering wheel works, and this is the... Like, it doesn't matter because there's no wheels. Don't you understand? There's no tires on the wheels. The wheels are spinning in space. They can't hit the road because there's no tire on the road. You get it? Okay, so, this is like James Bond on a train track. The car ain't going to run on the road with no frickin' tires. Maybe modern cars will because the wheels are so big and the tires are so thin. But old day tires wouldn't work because the tire was fat and the wheel was small. But anyway, a technicality of the analogy. So, I point out with clear evidence that one of the, the fundamental experiments that is the foundation of much of the theory of modern physics has been misdescribed and misunderstood and just completely botched as an argument for a certain premise and a certain theory. And it can't be used to defend that theory because it's glaringly broken as evidence of that theory. And I point out these glaring, just glaring misrepresentations. So the first thing we should be able to admit is that if somebody's making an argument in defense of something and they're not telling the truth, they're not accurately describing something, well, right there should be a credibility issue. I mean, how far, they can't do it on the simplest thing, the first thing. Right off the bat, they're telling you misstatements. Why should they be trusted in terms of being capable of having an argument about stuff that you don't know, that you might not be as expert in, and you're just going to trust them? When you've watched them propagandize, when you've watched them distort reality to defend a premise. And that should be conceded that, okay, you have to fix that. You can't do that. That's not legitimate. That's not a legitimate way to argue or defend or explain. So if your explanation, if to defend the truth you have to lie, somebody can understand that, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. You're defending the true theory by creating fake evidence in defense of the true theory. Isn't that just as bad as the Peter Popoff religious kook who would say, it's okay for me to lie, okay, about having ESP. You know, he used speakers to fake knowledge of people's lives and heal them and that kind of stuff. So using a radio transmitter to, get information and pretend he got the information from God. But he would say, hey, it's the principle is true. God wants to heal the guy. I'm just making the guy understand that God wants him healed, and that way when he understands it, he'll behave the proper way for God to heal him. He'll have trust in God, even though it's based on a lie. So I make him trust God by performing a magic trick and fooling the guy, and that somehow, because I fooled him, God will heal him now, because now he's going to say the right words to God, because he's going to fakely believe in God because I performed a miracle. You get it? So I perform a fake miracle to create fake faith, and God is going to reward the fake faith. That's how silly the theory is, right? So he justifies lying, because lying gets him to the proper answer, which is God exists and God will heal you, even though it's all fake. Like somehow God doesn't know you cheated. Yeah, that's the premise. God doesn't care about cheating. It's okay to cheat. There's no 10th commandment against cheating. There probably is. False witness and stealing are both in there. It's the same as cheating, I think, altogether. But anyway, so obviously that's a problem here. Is that obviously I think if they can't properly describe the simplest experiment in physics, the one with the fewest complex parts, and they can't accurately describe what it's doing, and let alone get interpretations of what's happening correct. So we're not even talking about interpretations. We're talking about the raw data. They can't even honestly describe what the raw data is, let alone having, in my opinion, any hope of properly interpreting the data. They can't even get the description of the data correct. It's coming out blue, they're calling it red. It's that bad. Okay, their description is so far off. Okay, it's not like a little bit off where they said it's maroon, okay, and it was red. No, it's not close at all. It's completely almost the opposite color. So it's exactly that. It came out white, and they called it black. I mean, it's that bad. All right, and then they're going to give you an argument. So I'm pointing out how this religion, okay, of physics, has this glaring flaw in their whole Adam and Eve theory, where they're not accurately describing things that are videotaped. It's not like this is a questionable thing. It's like I have a videotape of Adam and Eve, okay? I have the hard evidence. They're saying something happened, and you can watch the tape, and it didn't happen. It's that glaring an error. And instead of dealing with that, these fuckheads will just keep trying to make a rationalization that somehow it's okay because the theory's correct. It's okay because the theory's correct. So even though they're misdescribing the fundamental, the foundation of their theory, and it's the simplest experiment in the universe, with the simplest pattern in the universe, and yet they can't accurately describe that. And that's okay. Because the end result is correct. And that's what you're up against. And you're trying to argue that no, they got it wrong here, and the rest of it is all gerrymandered to be fixed. Okay, they fix it with fake things. They Huygens here, and they Heisenberg there, and then they dark matter over here, and they create little rigs and fixes, okay, to make stuff work. But it isn't right, and it isn't correct, and if they did it the right way, they'd be able to make so much more. They'd have so much better a foundation to work on, and they wouldn't be spending so much time fixing what doesn't work. So it's like the car doesn't have tires, and instead of just putting tires on the car, they're trying to build legs so the car can walk. You know, they're doing something just totally stupid, and they're just wasting a bunch of energy and a bunch of engineering skills trying to make something into something it's not. And the simple answer is just go back to the foundation. Understand that the tires are what's on the road and that they're what makes the car move. Okay, and get that part right. And then you'll understand the steering, and you'll understand all the other stuff, but then you'll understand the friction of the tire on the road. Everything else will make much more sense if you get the foundation right. Alright, and that's what I'm arguing for. But again, like I said, you don't get a rational counter-argument. All you get is, well, I hit it with my hammer, okay, which was, what do you mean scientists are wrong? And then, you know, I point out, this is what I mean, asshole. Okay, they're wrong. They're absolutely 100% wrong. They've inaccurately described it. It's a fact. So once you establish that, then they forget about that. And then they just pick up a different hammer and start, you know. And then they pick up a hammer that's got some kind of shit written on it that's like, who cares? What does that have to do with it? Trees are tall. And he starts hitting you with a trees are tall argument. I'm like, yeah, I'm not arguing against trees being tall, asshole. I'm arguing that physicists don't know how cars work. The trees are tall doesn't have anything to do with that. And you can see that in this conversation. It's just naysaying for the sake of naysaying. It's easy to tear it down. It's hard to build it up, okay? Making something takes work. Breaking, really easy. So that's my argument. Is they're all taking the easy road, and the only person doing any of the hard work around here is me. I'm the one calculating solutions, and they're just calculating excuses, rationalizations, cop-outs, catch-22s, you know, just tear-downs. And that's it. They don't know how to do it. They have no other tool in their bag but hammer. They can't do a motherfucking thing but whack at shit. You know, no effort, no intelligence, no engineering, no thought required. It's just too fucking easy, so they take the easy road, like at the Nietzsche road. I'll make fun of everybody else's failed efforts to be a human being while I be a bug. I'll take the easiest road there is. Selfish, bug, cunt. I'll use as little intelligence as needed. Selfish, bug. What do I want? Gee, that's hard to do, isn't it? What do I want? Man, that's really hard. Yeah, that's really hard to do. Yeah, no, that's easy. Hard is being productive. Hard is making, not breaking. That's the hard fucking part. And nobody wants to get into a competition doing the hard stuff. They just want to get into a competition Who can break the most shit? So anyway, enough video. But it really got to one point where I'm actually having, I had to argue about an on-off pattern, and I drew it as lines just to make it short. On-off is line, space, line, space. And I had to get an argument that that's not the pattern because I didn't make the lines thick enough. I was like, what the fuck? Could you people get any more? You just can't get more obtuse in your denial of the broken that exists. It's right here in front of you. I can point, it's broken, and you're just going to deny it, right? You're just going to keep pretending there is a God. You just can't let it go. And God in this case is the quantum irregularity, floaty, mushy, 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 moo. The woo-woo of the quantum. Woo, it's mysterious. Photons are really complicated. Woo. Yeah, that's their religion. And they won't hear rational counter-argument. They just won't hear it. They'll just pick up their hammer, keep whacking any kind of reason. Get the reasonableness out of my way. I don't want reasonableness in my way. And that's why the physicists avoid single slit interference, is because they can't really make a reasonable explanation. Because Huygens isn't reasonable, obviously. The not principled principle. The principle you only use in one circumstance. That's called catchy-22-y. Okay, that's not called a principle. That's called a gimmick. Alright. Won't beat it to death, but... So, it just is discouraging, because I'm just not getting any reasoned counter-argument. I'm just getting berated with minutia. And I successfully argue it. That's the point. Most of the times I know, oh, the guy makes a point. I say, oh, no, I got that covered. Here's the counter argument. Blah, blah, blah. Even when I cover it, it doesn't matter. They're just going to keep throwing the crap balls. And that's all the contest becomes. I'm not defending an idea. I'm just swatting shit. And I'm just going to spend the rest of my life swatting shit instead of actually having a rational conversation about what the fucking truth is. So anyway, till next time. Lament, I don't know how to fix it because I can't make other people be reasonable. I can't make them take the message serious and quit playing with the messenger. I can't, I can't make people be reasonable. That's all I can say. I can't make these assholes be reasonable and reasonably argue a subject. So, I don't know how to fix this problem. I don't know what to do. I make a rational argument. I demonstrate and prove that the foundations of physics is shit, and all the professors admit it because every one of them can't describe the experiment accurately. Not one of them can tell the truth. No politician will tell you the truth about the Social Security Trust Fund. Obama won't tell you the truth about the $4 trillion in the reserve accounts. He's going to pretend that got there from banks. The banks put it there. The banks didn't put it there. The federal government put it there. And they're certainly not going to tell you the truth about what they have FDIC insured. They're not going to tell you, nobody's going to tell you what's been FDIC insured. But yeah, they're being the reasonable people. And somebody who says, no, that's not reasonable, he's the asshole. So I'm an asshole because I'm pointing out to you how your icons, your leaders of physics and the economy, are lying to you. And you call me the bad guy. I prove that they're liars. You call me the bad guy. I mean, that's just fucked up. Alright. So, till next time. And so.